Hey guys, welcome to the UF Disciple channel. Today we're going to be doing a graphics card overview and comparison featuring Galax's Hall of Fame edition graphics cards. So let's get started. So featured in today's video, we have the GTX 970 Hall of Fame, the GTX 980 Hall of Fame, and the GTX 980 Ti Hall of Fame edition. And the point of today's video is not to tell you that the 980 Ti is better than the 980, which is better than the 970. I think the general difference between each card is obvious enough. I want to use this video rather to discuss both the price to performance that each one brings to the table, both at stock speeds and overclocked, but also to give you a good understanding of any other general differences between the cards. Before we get into the analytics of everything, let's go over the physical aspects of the cards. All three cards feature a tri-fan design with two 80mm fans on the outside with one 90mm fan at the center. They also have the same 7 nickel-plated heat pipes transferring heat from the custom extended all-white PCB. The Hall of Fame cards also share the same outputs, featuring 3 DisplayPort 1.2 outputs, 1 HDMI 2.0 port, and 1 DVI-I port. And also on the rear of each card, you'll find this nondescript button, which is not labeled on the card, in the manual, or anywhere that I could find on Galax's website as to what it exactly does. They also share the same dimensions of 315mm in length, 144.1mm in height, and 51mm in width, making them a 2.5 slot card. There's also the same SLI connectors and dual 8-pin power inputs at the top of the card. And while we're talking about these power inputs, what in the world? Everything else about this card is white, but these power inputs are a more tan/beige color, not really fitting in with the entire design scheme. And finally, these wouldn't be Hall of Fame cards without the illuminated Hall of Fame logos at the top of the cards. And that's where they are all similar. In fact, the GTX 970 and GTX 980 are pretty much identical in appearance. I haven't been able to find any specific thing that separates them. However, the 980 Ti does have some key differences that I'll note here. The fans of the Ti are an all-black design, while the fans of the other cards are white on outside fans with a black inside 90mm. Also, the outside fan covers on the Ti are a chrome design as opposed to a silver finish on the 970 and 980s. The 980 Ti's backplate features a different design with more aggressive lines and including another illuminated Hall of Fame logo there. And then last and kind of least, on the back I/O and the PCI Express, they include these black little covers for protection. So after all of the talk about the outsides of the cards, let's discuss their performance. To measure this, I used the gaming benchmarks with Batman Arkham Knight, Crysis 3, Far Cry 4, Grand Theft Auto 5, Metro Last Light, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, Tomb Raider, and The Witcher 3, and compared their average FPS against their costs both here in South Africa, but also their costs with the US dollar by purchasing them from Galax's direct website. These price-to-performance comparisons are made with each game both at out-of-the-box speeds and also overclocked. Also, I'll be giving a breakdown for 1080p gaming, 1440p gaming, as well as 4K gaming. Feel free to pause the video at any time you need to examine the charts as you need. At 1080p in stock speeds, the GTX 970 hits the top of the price to performance chart with regards to the rand and the dollar in every game, besides Tomb Raider, where the GTX 980 comes out on top. With the overclock speeds, the 970 pulls ahead and tops the charts in every game, and at 1440p in stock speeds, the 970 again reigns supreme in most games. However, in Metro Last Light, it only averaged 25 FPS, and therefore it isn't considered as completing the benchmark, so the GTX 980 has a better price to performance, and the 970 also loses out with regards to The Witcher 3 as well, where the 980 also comes out on top. With the overclock applied, the GTX 970 pulls ahead with a higher price to performance in Witcher 3, but still doesn't crack a 30 FPS average on Metro Last Light, where the GTX 980 Ti actually gets the nod as a winner. At 4K in stock speeds, the 970 misses out on averaging over 30 FPS in Crysis 3, Far Cry 4, Grand Theft Auto 5, Metro Last Light, and The Witcher 3. And every game failed to get above 16 frames in Metro Last Light, so that won't be considered here. In Arkham Knight, Shadow of Mordor, and Tomb Raider, where the 970 actually finishes the benchmark, it comes out as the best price to performance. In Crysis 3, Far Cry 4, and GTA 5, the GTX 980 is the best price to performance, while in The Witcher 3, the 980 Ti wins this race. With the overclock, the 970 qualifies for everything besides The Witcher 3. Metro Last Light still proves insurmountable, with the 980 Ti averaging only less than 20 FPS. In every game the 970 qualifies for, it gets the price to performance nod, except Arkham Knight, where the 980 wins, and it also wins in The Witcher 3. So with all of that technical detail out of the way, what's the conclusion? Well, if you're only going to be playing games at 1920 by 1080, there's really no reason to go beyond the 970 Hall of Fame. It averages over 60 FPS in every game at stock speed, with plenty of FPS to spare in most of them. You'll save a few bucks and you get a beautiful card. The same could honestly be said for 1440p gaming. It'll give you over or at around 60 FPS in most AAA games of today, but may struggle in future games since The Witcher 3 stayed in the 40s average. It's not unacceptable by any stretch, but if you're looking to hit that 60 FPS sweet spot at 1440p, the 980 or Ti would be a better bet. At 4K, definitely don't consider the 970 unless you're going to get 2 in SLI, but then it definitely would be cheaper and more cost efficient to go with the 980 Ti. And while the price to performance is better on the 980, you're definitely going to get some sub 30 FPS dips on the 980, more than on the 980 Ti. So the average price to performance evaluation doesn't suggest this, but I would actually say the 980 Ti would be the best bet for 4K gaming at this point. If you want a detailed breakdown of the minimum, maximum, and average frame rates for the cards, you can click the card in the top right hand corner to be directed to the playlist where I've evaluated each of these cards individually. So in summary, go with the 970 Hall of Fame if you're playing at 1080 and 1440p, and with the 980 Ti if you're going for 4K. However, if you just want the nicest looking card, the 980 Ti is pretty beautiful, but not enough to justify the price increase if you're only playing at 1080p. I want to thank Wootware for sponsoring this series of videos on the Galax graphics cards. Wootware is a South African-based computer components retailer that provides incredible pricing without sacrificing on their customer support. They most definitely offer the lowest prices I could find on each of these Hall of Fame edition cards that are featured in this video. So if you're in South Africa, head on over to wootware.co.za to woot up your computer. So that's it for this video of the comparison between each of the Galax GTX Hall of Fame graphics cards. Like this video if it was helpful, dislike it if it was more disappointing than a Ford Pinto. You can subscribe to stay up to date on my future tech-related videos featuring reviews, unboxings, and more comparisons like this one. You can also use my Amazon affiliate code down in the video description to purchase graphics cards and everything else you purchase on Amazon, and it gives my channel a small monetary kickback that helps my channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers. And I think I have a nosebleed. That's kind of embarrassing.